Sorry, as I apologize as I take my mask off. I'd like to call the February 1st Common Council meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Frankie, if everybody would stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Clerk Treasurer Parthune.
Councilman Frankie.
Present.
Councilman Vincent.
Here.
Councilwoman Konechny.
Present.
Councilwoman Ficus.
Present.
Councilwoman West. Here. Councilman Galloway. Oh, he's still connecting.
Councilman Galloway. Councilman Galloway, can you share with a thumbs up?
Connecting to audio. Oh, there. Can you one more time? Thank you. Councilwoman Cutler.
Did you hear that?
I heard it now. Thank you. All present. And Ashley's coming in to help Councilman Galloway.
Hello. Hi, here. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Roger, can you mute?
All right. Can we go through that again? Do I have a motion for approval of minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes is presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Petitions and comments of citizens. As we do, we allow citizens to participate via social media. Is that Councilman Galloway's computer that needs to be muted?
No, I think maybe I don't know.
So we do allow for public comment throughout the meeting. We do have somebody this evening, Lisa Piersakowski. Lisa, if you would state your name, address, and your comments, please.
I live at 3511 West Johnson Road, and my question is about having to sign a waiver, yet your attorney is emailing me and said neither the issues are applicable to the ordinance amendment. My question still is, I have a working well, I have a working septic, and if my well or my septic fail, because the city has ran water in front of my house, I will be forced to hook into the water. They will not let me drill another well. I'll be forced to hook into the water. So my question was, does that mean that I can not sign the waiver, or do I have to sign the waiver? And so your attorney was sending me information. So I still feel like I don't want to sign the waiver because I really don't want to be annexed into the city. I love my county living. I love the city. I love what you guys are doing. There's nothing against that, but I don't understand. I don't feel that the city would be able to take care of my area when they have their hands full of the city right now. So that's my only concern.
Thank you very much. Again, public comment is not question and answer, but if there's a council member that would like to respond, we certainly appreciate all the work in Center Township and the city.
Lisa, I do have a question for you. When you say you couldn't, when your working well stops, you're required to connect. What do you mean? The county's requiring that?
Yes, because the health department will not let us drill a new well or a septic if it fails, because the city has brought those. I don't know about the septic, but I'm hearing from neighbors that that's what they're being told. But as far as the water, that is what, when we went through this many years ago with Todd Taylor, and that was the one issue, was that if the city water was ran in front of our property, if our well failed, then we would be forced to hook into the city water. And I love my well water. I'm sorry. I've lived on well water all my life, and I love my well water. I hate city water. So when I lived in the city, I would go out to the county to my family and get water. So, and I understand you guys want to annex and add more people. I get it. But again, I'm still going to say, I don't think you have the manpower to bring everything out to the county yet.
Well, and I think people have said that about Center Township government, whether you have the manpower or the county having the manpower to ever do enough. But we certainly appreciate that. And will you be following up with the county to see if there is something mandated in writing stating you have to do that?
I sure will.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much and keep up the good work. Any other comments from the public, or do we have anything on social media? Mr. Otis?
No, not right now.
Great. We will move to standing committee reports. Mr. Frankie?
The Redevelopment Commission met on this past Wednesday, the 27th. A little foreshadowing here, but they primarily discussed the resolution for issuance of bonds, and we'll get into that shortly. The next meeting will be on the last Wednesday of the month at 5:15. Perhaps this one will be in person at City Hall. Stay tuned. Could be over Zoom. We'll let you know. The school board meets February 8th, and that's all I got.
Councilwoman Cutler?
Business Improvement District Board will meet this month on Monday, February 11th at 5 p.m. via Zoom. And the UEA, the Urban Enterprise Association Board meeting, the board elected to continue with its current slate of officers, and the zone consultant contract was approved for Marianne Richards. And going forward in 2021, the Office of Community Development and Planning will be overseeing the administrative duties of the UEA. In terms of the residential committee of the UEA, they reported that funding in the amount of $55,000 from 2020 was encumbered into 2021 for the 4 approved residential projects that are coming in the zone. If funds remain after completion of those 4 projects, new applications from the wait list will be considered in the residents. And the next meeting of the UEA is Wednesday, February 17th at 4 p.m. That's it.
Councilwoman West?
The Fire and Merit Commission will be discussing this year's upcoming promotional testing and choosing a company to administer the test. They'll discuss this at this week's meeting on February 3rd. So at the next meeting, I'll have more to report on.
Councilwoman Konechny?
The Airport Authority will meet on Wednesday, February 10th at 5:15 via Zoom. And the last tree commission meeting, they met on Thursday, January 18th. There were 4 main points of discussion. The first one, and again, a little foreshadowing, the review of the amended ordinance that will be presented later tonight. Number 2, the discussion for the need for applying for various grants to secure funding for designated city staff to be properly trained in correct arbor techniques and safety best practices. Emphasis there is on education and safety, so the work eventually could be done in-house. Item number 3 was the preparation for an Arbor Day event. Arbor Day this year will be on April 30th. And then finally, the discussion about a future presentation in front of the Common Council in regards to the current tree canopy and the master plan.
Councilman Vincent?
Yeah, the next Plan Commission meeting will be on Tuesday the 9th at 6 p.m. That's all I have to report.
Councilwoman Ficus?
Park Board met remotely on Wednesday, January 20th. Election of officers for 2021 resulted in Mitch Ficus as president, Nicole Messakar as vice president, and Roberta Muma as secretary. Hubers Marine agreed to the new terms of the contract for the Pine Lake boat docks and the launch. A proposal was brought to the board regarding a 9-hole disc golf course that they plan on having out at Kessling Park. The course will be laid out in the open area within like the walking trail. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, you can go ahead and email Park Superintendent Mark Schreiber at mschreiber@cityoflaportein.gov. Board approval was given for the Park Department to acquire a gaming license in order to hold raffles to raise money for the youth sports. And then Traffic Commission will be meeting tomorrow virtually at 6 o'clock. That's all I have.
Councilman Galloway.
Unmute.
Roger, you have to unmute, please.
Mayor, you may need to mute.
Mr. Galloway, or Councilman Galloway, if you could unmute.
Ashley's running in there. One moment.
How's that?
There he goes.
There you go. Thank you, Roger. Councilman Galloway.
Okay, the Police Merit Commission will meet a week from tomorrow on the 9th at 2 o'clock at the police station. And the VFW meeting tomorrow night is canceled. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Before we move on to ordinances, I believe we have had Ms. Joan Ludwig join us. Ms. Ludwig, would you like to speak to anything regarding open comment on behalf of citizens? Ms. Ludwig? Okay. We will
Mayor,
now,
this is Annette. I'm not seeing that she has audio. I'm sorry.
okay. Thank you. So we will now move to ordinances. Councilwoman Cutler, second and final reading.
I move to introduce an ordinance read for the second time by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilwoman Cutler.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 12-2013, an ordinance setting requirements for mobile vendors of the municipal code of the city of LaPorte, Indiana. End of title.
Discussion. I would just like to say, I know I had some calls regarding the $500 for annual fee, but again, when you break that down over a year's time, that's a very competitive price for those vendors that are going to be here year round.
And this just basically makes it fair for all of the vendors, correct? Because there are some that are outside of the farmer's market.
Correct. Mr. Casey, he is on, our city planner. Would you like to speak to this ordinance? Tom Casey?
It's on mute.
Tom, you are on mute. Councilwoman Cutler, would you like to add anything from the downtown perspective?
It came to our attention that throughout this summer when farmers market vendors were paying the vendor fee every weekend, it far outweighed what anyone could pull up next to the farmers market and pay for an entire year. And it wasn't really very fair. The rest of the ordinance we read through, everything else is pretty much in place in terms of if a vendor wants to set up on the sidewalk, where they have to be placed, or if they conflict with what's selling in a business downtown. So for example, if a coffee shop sells coffee, a vendor cannot set up in front of that with their own coffee shop. So yeah, I don't encourage people to possibly look at space.
And again, when you break, it's $10.
Councilman Galloway, can you mute, please?
Councilman Galloway.
I don't know if we can or not. Where the hell's the mute button?
You're
Good.
I got it.
further discussion.
I have a question. Who's responsible for enforcing this?
Well, I do know that when we had a situation this summer with a vendor setting up on our block, I just contacted code enforcement, also the police officers, in terms of if they set up, we had a vendor setting up in a handicap zone on the street. So we contacted the police, they came and had the vendor move and relocate. So I'm guessing code enforcement?
It'll be a combination depending if it's a weekend, a weekday, depending who is there, between police, and code enforcement just to confirm the permit. Because again, I heard directly from a business owner downtown that said, hey, is it fair that a mobile truck can pull up right in front of my business and somewhat block the view for potential customers to know that I'm here and available? So, does that answer your question, Councilman Frankie?
It does. Thank you.
Further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Councilwoman Ficus.
Your Honor, I move to read an ordinance for the second time by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilwoman Ficus.
An ordinance of the City of LaPorte concerning outside city water and sewer collection services.
Discussion. And I would like to give Ms. Ludwig an opportunity to look like her audio was coming on. Ms. Ludwig, would you like to share any concerns or support for this bill? Okay. Discussion, and maybe we could get clarity from Mr. Otis. I just want to remind people, as you've stated several times, this is considered voluntary annexation. Since years ago, the council put into effect that, and you can only receive water and sewer services if you are a resident. So this allows an individual outside the city limits to receive city and water where they couldn't before if they commit to being annexed in the city. Mr. Otis, you're muted.
There's not a motion and a second, I don't believe there.
I thought, okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, Mr. Otis.
Thanks. Mayor, again, this is an entirely voluntary agreement between a private individual outside the city limits and the City of LaPorte. Currently, and again, I think we have a couple city council members that were on the council at the time that the current ordinance was put into place. I believe it was put into place at a time when the hospital was looking to possibly relocate just outside the city limits. And the council passed the current ordinance to prevent new connections outside the city limits. And so now, again, this is obviously at the discretion of the council. The idea is that we would allow new individuals to connect to utilities, but in exchange, the property owner would either have to immediately agree to be annexed or sign an annexation waiver. And the reason for the difference there is some individuals, if they're not immediately adjacent to city property, or city property lines, they can't be immediately annexed. It may have to take place at a later date. So that's the idea behind this. It's entirely voluntary. The city is not forcing anybody to be annexed. It's if an individual wants utilities outside the city limits.
And again, we are evaluating who we provide service to, and we've made a commitment that we want to take care of our current residents with water and sewer, not necessarily non-residents outside city limits. So we have had individuals contact us that can't be annexed and have said, can I please have water and sewer? And the only way we're going to provide water and sewer is if they do sign that agreement to be annexed at whatever point that they are a nexus to the city limits.
One other aspect of the ordinance, it says the facilities connecting the outside customer to the city would become the city's property. That furthers our ability to serve other customers in the future, and eventually would assist in annexation if we're going out that direction. One other comment, you might get some, like there's a trailer park way out in Rolling Prairie that wants to connect. Well, the current ordinance would prohibit that. This ordinance would allow it, so the wastewater customer would get some new, wastewater department would get new customer, some new income, but they're, 6 miles away. It's not likely to annex anytime soon. So you would have some effects like that also.
And I saw some questions about, well, where is the city looking? I think, Mayor, certainly if you want to provide input, but it would be generally anywhere around the current city limits. I don't think the city would be looking. Mr. Jackson brought up a good point about a park way outside the city limits, but generally speaking, Mayor, I think it'd be safe to say from a cost perspective, new utility lines, it would be cheapest to do that near the current city limits.
Correct, but again, we have individuals contacting us that would like to connect to water and sewer, and because we have an ordinance, they first have to understand either number one, be annexed if they are a nexus within the city or to the city limits, and if not, at what point they would be, they would then annex in the city. And not one individual has argued or fought that. The other part of that, for any agreements we are looking at where we currently supply water and sewer to non-residents, such as 39 North, we are evaluating that because there is a cost to doing that type of work. The IURC only allows a 15% increase over residence fees, and so we have to focus on what's important in the city limits, and that's our goal. So we look forward to continuing to work with non-residents that may be in need of water and sewer, but we want to focus on our city and growing the areas that we have within our community. With that, Ms. Ludwig, I think you now have audio. Would you like to share any thoughts? Ms. Ludwig, I think you have to unmute. I'll give her a moment here.
Mayor, while we're waiting for her, we had a question from Tim Gust about the cost of this. The individuals that have inquired either to you or to Mr. Jackson, are these, as I understand it, some utilities aren't locations, is that correct?
Did you do it? Yes. Hello?
Yes, let's get Ms. Ludwig. Let's allow her to have make her point.
Well, my concern is I live in the Sunnyside subdivision outside city limits. You don't have any plans to annex that subdivision, do you?
As of right now, we are focused on those individuals that are asking us to they want to be able to annex for water and sewer. So those are the groups that we are focused on as we speak today.
Okay, because I've talked to several neighbors. In fact, the neighbors have contacted me, and the residents of Sunnyside don't want to be in the city limits.
Okay, and again, hopefully they're not asking for water and sewer hookup either.
Well, I guess I'll have to go around and canvass the entire neighborhood. We have large lots, a lot of elderly people. We have our own septic and wells here in the Sunnyside subdivision. So, I mean, I like LaPorte. I've lived in LaPorte my whole life, but I don't want to live in city limits. So well, I guess I'll canvass the neighborhood and see if any of them have requested, city sewer and water hookup. And I'll take it from there then.
And I will ask the council members that cover that. I think that's Councilwoman Konechny, Mr. Frankie maybe, but have you heard from anybody in the Sunnyside neighborhood? It's the first I've heard of it. Anybody else heard anybody wanting to be annexed from Sunnyside?
I have not heard anything as of late.
I have not heard anything either, but I think what a lot of people don't understand, it's tough to annex. It's not something the city can just say, okay, you're annexed. We basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Otis, but you have to go from the city limits out, and you as the property owner have the right to refuse. In this case, the city just doesn't want to lose money by providing water to people that aren't going to pay their fair share of taxes.
Oh, I totally understand that. Quite some years ago, there was a move to annex the Sunnyside subdivision. And my father and Mrs. Kohler actually went to the residents and did a survey and went to a lawyer and found out, we fought the annexation. So I was just really concerned. A lot of neighbors are concerned. And so I wanted to get clarification from the council.
There's probably more clarification for those that are currently receiving water and sewer that are non-residents that are probably more concerned than growing our business. So you can call me anytime, Joan, at 363-7293. But thank you for your time today. We will now move back to council comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
Mayor, again, I think some of the question was the people that have shown interest in this. These are people that are already adjacent to utilities lines of the city. Is that correct? Maybe you or Jerry can answer that question.
Yeah, we've had some interest in people who live along the line down 18th Street, for example, adjacent to Sunnyside, who wanted to connect into sewer water because they save $1 that way. It's a lot cheaper than building a new septic to connect to sewer, and then it's less trouble. So yeah, we have had customers interested. There's a few that are hooked up along 18th Street. I got a contact here 2 or 3 weeks ago from someone in Sunnyside interested, but they were well removed from our facilities. It wasn't going to happen at any kind of cost-effective means. There was no way for them to hook to sewer or water. So it's generally the people who are adjacent to our facilities who are interested.
And the interesting thing, just to share this information for those that are interested in city water and sewer and want to be annexed, based on the property tax caps, from a residential perspective, so far the numbers we have ran is their property tax bill does not go up, thanks to the property tax caps. So people can annex their, at least the groups we've seen so far, their property tax bill does not go up, and now they're receiving city water, city sewer, city police, and city fire. So
their insurance would go down as well as a result of fire.
Other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Councilwoman Konechny, introduction of an ordinance.
Your Honor, I move to introduce an ordinance amending ordinance number 5-2009, amending provisions to the city's ordinance regulating trees, shrubs, and other plants. I ask for permission to read the amended language only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor state by say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Before Councilwoman Konechny goes, obviously due to the length of the current ordinance, Councilwoman Konechny, with the approval of legal, will only concentrate on those additions to this current ordinance.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 5-2009, amending provisions to the city's ordinance regulating trees, shrubs, and other plants. Under definitions, section 102-26 definitions. Designated city staff means a qualified individual charged by the mayor to oversee the maintenance and longevity of the urban forest. Section 102-27, public tree care. Designated city staff, or in the event of an emergency, the Board of Public Works and Safety may recommend order, or cause the removal of any tree or part thereof which is unsafe in an unsafe condition, injurious to utilities or to other public improvements, or affected with any injurious fungus, disease, insect, or other pest. This section does not prohibit the planting of street trees by adjoining property owners, providing that section and location of said trees in the accordance within Division 3 of this article and approved by the designated city staff. Under Section 102-28, permit required for tree pruning, planting, and other actions. Except for under Section A, except for branches less than 1/2 inch in diameter, it is unlawful for any person to prune, remove, plant, injure, or destroy any street or park trees within the city without first applying for and obtaining a written permit from the city engineering department. B, prior to the issuance of a permit for removal or destruction of trees, the city shall, with the assistance of such professional as may be necessary, determine if the tree is diseased or dead. If the tree is diseased or dead, the city shall issue a permit for its removal or destruction. If the tree is neither diseased nor dead, prior to the issuance of the permit to remove or destroy, further review may be required. Prior to the issuance of the permit or to trim or plant, the city shall determine whether or not the proposed trimming or planting is within the regulations and guidelines established by the article. Section C, any person may appeal from any ruling of the city to the Board of Public Works, which may grant a variance from the strict provisions of this article. In case of hardship or in cases where granting a variance will not substantially conflict with the purpose and intent of this article. Section E, any person, firm, corporation, or city department performing construction near any public tree must employ appropriate measures to protect the tree, including, but not limited to, placing barriers around the tree to prevent damage. Section 102-29, pruning. Every owner of any private tree overhanging any street or right-of-way within the city shall prune the branches so that such branches shall not obstruct the light from any street lamp or obstruct the view of any street intersection, and so that there shall be a clear space of 8 feet above the surface of any sidewalk and 14 feet above any street. These requirements shall not apply to recently planted or young trees where pruning may cause injury to the tree and are subject to the seasonal pruning requirements of the specific tree species. Moving on to Section 102-33, notice to trim or to remove certain trees or other vegetation. City code enforcement is authorized to require the owner or occupant of property abutting to any public street, alley, lawn, park, or parkway to trim or remove. Number 5, any tree, shrub, vine, flower, or plant with ecologically invasive traits which may pose harm to the city's urban forest to be determined by the designated city staff. Moving on to Section 102-36, penalties for violation. Any person violating any provision of this article shall be, upon conviction of or a plea of guilty, subject to a fine up to $100. In addition thereto, anyone found guilty of having either removed or destroyed a tree in violation of these provisions shall be assessed the cost of replacing the tree. Violations shall be referred to the city code enforcement for investigation, who shall take enforcement action before the administrative law judge. Under Division 2, City Tree Commission, Section 102-48, Duties and Responsibilities. It shall be the responsibility of the designated city staff to study, investigate, counsel, develop, and or update annually a written plan for the care, preservation, pruning, planting, replanting, removal, or disposition of trees and shrubs in parks, along streets, and other public areas. Such plan, following approval by the Tree Commission, will be presented annually to the Common Council, and upon its acceptance and approval shall constitute the official comprehensive tree plan for the city. The Commission, when requested by the Common Council or Board of Public Works and Safety, shall consider, investigate, make findings, report, and recommend upon any special matter or question coming within the scope of its work. The Commission shall act in an advisory capacity to the designated city staff and shall, number 1, coordinate and promote Arbor Day activities. Number 2, support public awareness and education programs relating to trees. Number 3, review city and community concerns related to tree care. Number 4, submit an annual report of its activities to the Common Council. Number 5, assist with the annual application to review the Tree City USA designation. Number 6, funding solicitation for implementation of city tree plan, including grants and donations. Number 7, other duties that may be assigned by the Common Council. Division 3, street trees, section 102-61, species to be planted. Designated city staff shall maintain an official list of desirable tree species for planting on public property in three size classes: small, 25 feet in maturity and smaller; medium, 20 to 25 feet at maturity; and large, 40 feet or more at maturity. Trees from this list may be planted without special permission and will be reviewed when planting permits are permitted. Other species may be planted with written approval from the designated city staff. Tree planting and care standards. All planting and maintenance of public trees shall conform to the National Standards Institute, ANSI A-300 Standards for Tree Care Operations, and shall follow all tree care best management practices, BMPs, published by the International Society of Arboriculture. Outside of that, the section 102-88, removal by the city. It shall be the duty of the city and code enforcement to cause such weeds or rank vegetation to be cut, destroyed, and hauled away. Section 102-89, penalties. In addition to all of the remedies provided in this article, violations of section 102-89 shall be subject to a $100 fine. That concludes all the revisions to the existing ordinance.
Discussion?
I've noticed that on
Oh, Laura,
section,
we're doing the same thing.
same thing,
About the fine?
section 102, the fines have both been read as $100 on section 102-36, and mine says 1,000, as
Mine
well as
too.
the last page.
Mine does too.
So, Mr. Otis, do you want to address that to align it with 1,000?
Yep, it should be 100.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank
we will
you.
make that change. I'd also, Mr. Minnick is here, and his team is the one that put this ordinance together, because we now have, his team has Sarah Nemitz, who is basically an arborist waiting on a final test. That's a part of our engineering department that we have a luxury in having her around. Mr. Minnick, would you like to just address some points here in this ordinance?
Yeah, and I did actually. I just received a message from Sarah, and it was supposed to be 1,000. So
Okay.
The tree commission has been doing a great job for the city, but as they do so, they've been taking on more and more roles that are somewhat outside the normal purview of a tree commission. This revision to the ordinance does a couple things. It brings our ordinance up to date, and then allows for both our city staff through either the engineering department and code enforcement to do more of the enforcement action, and then kind of takes that away from the tree commission so that they can focus on more of the promotion of our urban canopy and try and encourage us to do a better job and get people better educated in understanding the benefit that our trees have for the city. So it does a little bit of a reorganization of our tree commission again to really push the encouraging of the benefits of trees, and then kind of moves the city staff into a role where we do more of the day-to-day action items that are required for trees within the city.
Questions for Mr. Minnick or further discussion?
Mayor, just real quick, if you don't mind, I recall a couple years ago, Nick Minnick, maybe you can comment on this. The tree commission members came and spoke in obviously an area that not area expertise about the importance of diversity of trees. We're known as the Maple City, but maybe if you could comment on that as one thing that Sarah plans to address.
Yeah, so the city has been able to, through a grant from Federal Highway, through our asset management program, do an inventory of all street trees within the city. That inventory is kind of being taken forward, and this ordinance kind of helps us do that. Tree commission is very important in helping us to make sure our tree canopy is healthy. And although we are the maple city, having 90% of our trees being maples can be a huge detriment if in the case of disease or age. In some cases, there's a number of things that we love our maple trees, but that doesn't mean they're always the right fit. So the ordinance also pulls back the very strict list of trees as certain trees become more desirable and less desirable from recognition of how they're invasive or not, and the quality of trees and tree health overall and disease and things like that. So I think this ordinance kind of helps us to not have a set firm list of specific tree species, but also allows us to kind of change that and modify it so that we do have the healthiest tree canopy possible. That inventory we have is an amazing tool for the city, and really is going to help us to identify areas of focus and areas of need, and we're going to be able to hopefully continue to improve and make sure our canopy is in good health.
And Mr. Minnick, if you'll stay on after this, there may be a couple other questions you might be able to be helpful with. Any other further discussion from the council?
I just basically wanted to state that Sarah is an excellent asset, not only to the city, but also to the city's trees. She truly embodies that of a Lorax. But not to minimize the current tree commission. These folks are all very knowledgeable in regards to species, the maintenance, pruning, well beyond my pay grade that I understand being an arborist or things like that. So their skill set, their knowledge, and their enthusiasm is pretty infectious. So I'm nowhere near their level yet, but I'm certainly excited to be the liaison for said ordinance and for the commission itself.
Any other discussion? Hearing
I
none?
just wanted to ask quickly about the $1,000 fine and maybe get a little better understanding as to whether or not that's the right number, where that came from.
Nick, would you like to address that? Nick Minnick?
Nick Minnick would probably be better for that. Yep.
Yeah, and I believe that number actually comes out of other places in our ordinances that allow for a maximum fine in either that amount or even more. So I think we looked at other fines and figured out what would be more consistent with enforcement action for not adhering to our ordinances.
For removing trees that are without permit approval. We've had that incident in the past, and so
yeah. And again, the code enforcement can assess a fine up to $1,000, so that keeps our tree ordinance and our code enforcement ordinances in line with each other.
But again, it's up to the council.
Well, I agree. It seems rather aggressive. However, I feel comfortable with the language that states up to 1,000. So I guess case by case, depending the level of severity of said offense.
I agree.
Well, I might just add, we may need to take a look at the language here, because as I read it, it says violations of the section shall be subject to a fine of $1,000. Maybe we need to add the words up to.
Well, the section 102
Section 102 does say that.
It does say that.
for a fine of up to $1,000.
So the
Page 5.
Yeah. Okay, so section 102-89, is that what you're talking about?
I'm looking at 102-89, yeah, page 9.
Oh, that's different.
I'd recommend let me get myself and Nick Minnick with Sarah Nimitz and make sure we're clear on that, and we can give you guidance before the next meeting or at the next meeting on those fine amounts. So I think the really high amount again is the concern that somebody would illegally remove, maybe a really mature tree. Mr. Vincent, you live on Michigan Ave. If somebody came and destroyed one of those trees, that might warrant $1,000 fine. So
Yeah, I think my concern was just, can we go up to, because there's probably a lot of issues, cutting the grass or something like that. Maybe $1,000 fine isn't really appropriate.
Right.
Great, so, and Mr. Vincent, will you work then with Mr. Otis before the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Any last questions or discussion? We will move that to the February 16th meeting. Councilman Frankie, introduction of a resolution.
Your Honor, I move to introduce a resolution read in its entirety for the first time.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilman Frankie.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of LaPorte, Indiana, approving the issuance of bonds of the City of LaPorte Redevelopment Commission and related matters. Whereas on January 27, 2021, the City of LaPorte Redevelopment Commission, the Commission, as governing body of the City of LaPorte Redevelopment District, the district, adopted a resolution making a preliminary determination to issue bonds in one or more series acting in the name of the City of LaPorte, Indiana, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $3,690,000, the bonds for the purpose of financing the cost of certain land remediation costs in or serving the city, including the LaPorte Town Square Economic Development Area, the LaPorte Central Business District Economic Development Area, the Thomas Rose Industrial Park Economic Development Area, and the Eastgate Economic Development Area in the city, together with the costs incurred in connection with and on account of issuance of the bonds, collectively the project. And whereas Indiana Code 36-7-14-25.1 requires the approval of the issuance of the bonds of the Commission by the legislative body of the city that specifies the public purpose of the bonds, the use of the bond proceeds, the maximum principal amount of the bonds, the term of the bonds, the maximum interest rate of the bonds, and any provision for redemption before maturity and payment of capitalized interest. And whereas the Common Council of the City, the Council, desires to approve the issuance of the bonds, which shall be payable from ad valorem taxes to be levied on the taxable property in the district, which is coterminous with the boundaries of the city, provided, however, that the Commission reasonably anticipates satisfying its payment obligations related to the bonds from other revenues legally available to the Commission, including, in particular, certain tax increment revenues for the purpose of financing the project. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of LaPorte, Indiana, as follows. Section 1. The Council hereby approves the issuance and sale of the bonds in one or more series in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $3,690,000 in order to provide funds to finance the costs of the project. The bonds shall have a final maturity date not later than July 15, 2040. The maximum interest rate on the bonds shall not exceed 5% per annum. A portion of the bond proceeds may be applied to pay capitalized interest on the bonds or to fund a reserve fund for the bonds if determined to be necessary or appropriate by the President of the Commission with the advice of the Commission's financial advisor. The bonds may be subject to redemption prior to maturity on terms determined by the Commission prior to the sale of the bonds, with the advice of the Commission's financial advisor. Number 2, the proper officers of the city are hereby authorized and directed for and on behalf of the city to execute and deliver any contract, agreement, certificate, instrument, or other document, and to take action on such person determines to be necessary or appropriate to accomplish the purpose of this resolution. Such determination to be conclusively evidenced by such person's execution of such contract, agreement, certificate, instrument, or other document, or such person's taking of such action. Number 3, the resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage by the Common Council and approval by the mayor as required by law. End of ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman Frankie. We do have Dustin Meeks from Baker Tilly as well as Tom Pittman here and Courtney Parthune that can talk about this. Would any one of you three like to discuss it any further or simplify this resolution?
Mayor, Dustin and Tom Pittman are from Barnes and Thornburg. They're our bond
Yes.
counsel.
Yeah, thank you. I would be happy to kind of summarize. This is really a financing that is being done by the Redevelopment Commission to finance remediation expenses relating to the Flaherty project, I believe. The bonds are payable. The plan of finance is that the bonds will be payable from tax improvement revenues to keep the interest rate as low as possible. There is a theoretical tax backup that secures the bonds, but Baker Tilly's numbers indicate that that's not ever expected to be tapped into. So the plan of finance is that this is a TIF bond issue by the Redevelopment Commission to finance remediation expenses. Under Indiana law, before a redevelopment commission can issue any sort of debt, regardless of the source of payment, they are required to make a stop at the city council to make sure it has the city council's blessing. So that's what we're here tonight requesting.
Thank you. Dustin Meeks, anything to add?
Nope, Tom about summed it up.
Clerk Treasurer Parthune?
I just wanted to note that all of our redevelopment bonds in the past have had property taxes as the backup for it. I just wanted to add that just in case council has questions.
Dustin, do you want to talk a little bit about the parameters of the bonds, the maximum term and that sort of thing, just to remind people?
Question from the council, if I could.
I'm sorry.
Questions? This is a resolution, so this will be up for a vote this evening. Dustin, did you want to add something?
Just talking about the general parameters of the bonds. The nice thing about this resolution is the Indiana law it requires you to kind of look at all of the specifics. So it is going to be the total issuance is going to be $3,690,000, and Baker Tilly is in the sale process is going to set the interest rates, but where we have a maximum of 5%, and the term of the bonds goes to 2040, which is 19 years.
Great. Further discussion? Hearing none on this resolution, do I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any last questions? All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank
I
you,
will
Mayor.
now move, and thank you, Mr. Pittman. Thank you, Mr. Meeks.
We'll go ahead and sign off then. Good night.
I will move to other business. Nick Minnick, stay on as well. We do have one from Drew Mullen. The Strong Towns Movement opposes any continued horizontal expansion, especially in cities that currently struggle to maintain existing infrastructure. I guess our clarity is that's what we're addressing, because we've been providing water and sewer to non-residents. So for that to continue in the future, we're requiring annexation so that we can focus on within the city limits. Clearly, there must be a misunderstanding of how we're stating that. So any further, does that make sense to everybody? Mr. Cook, is that a fair way to say it?
It is, Mayor. I'm assuming that the question, Drew's question, is more in regards to sprawl, and I would suggest that just what you said, Mayor, and some of what the work that the council is doing is not necessarily geared towards any kind of sprawl. These homes already exist. A lot of these residential structures are already in place. And so by theoretically providing utilities through annexation, you're not creating necessarily new development, you're serving those that are already located in those places. So I think that's probably where the question was geared towards, Mayor.
Sam Mall also stated, I'd gladly volunteer my property for city limits. The numbers, the money I'll save on insurance alone will offset added costs. So there's another comment. Mr. Gust, Tim Gust is, where's the money for these new potential annexations coming from? I mean, we're servicing people right now, water and sewer. For new ones, Nick Minnick, would you like to address running new sewer and water lines and the process there?
So for new sewer and water lines, usually it'd be kind of a utility-driven situation where both our water and wastewater departments would be working with whoever needed those utilities. So it's not a simple process to do that. There's not a lot of intention to just run water and sewer wildly throughout the county. I think what we're mostly looking at is building off of the existing system we have and making sure that people in close proximity that both want to be in the city someday and could be served easily off of our existing infrastructure are able to do that. So it is a lot about utilizing the existing infrastructure we have and making sure that we're doing it in a responsible way. We're not looking at major expansion of utility. What we're looking at is making sure that we're protecting both the capacity for both sewer and water within the system, within the city, and doing things intelligently. So it's not a just go out and grab everything or go out and expand everything. It is a very expensive thing to do, and each project would have to kind of stand on its own legs in order to do that.
Absolutely. Mr. Throgmorton, believe me, as soon as you are in the city limits, you're going to be paying for wheel tax, stormwater maintenance. I love our services, our water, our sewer, our fire, and especially our police. Amazing departments that we have there. Tammy Lidgard, our sidewalks on I Street will get redone this year. They're really bad, Nick. And again, we have 50-50 opportunities, correct, for sidewalks?
Yes. Most of I Street on the north half is within our priority area 2. So we are kind of systematically, doing those improvements. Depending on the block, there will be improvements along I Street as we're able to do that.
Great. And then Tim Gust was looking for the ordinance. It is on the website. Thank you, Mr. Laux, for as well helping that. Tiffany Marie is asking, I've been trying to have a tree taken down to no luck. A branch fell and damaged my hubs. I would ask you to call the engineering department at 362-2327. And Nick, is it best to contact Sarah direct?
Yeah, they can either contact Sarah, that'd probably be the best, or just leave a message with Jamie or whoever's available, and we'll get back to them.
Thank you. Bill Hardy, what areas are being considered for annexation? Again, we're focused on those non-residents that we're currently providing water and sewer service for. And then if somebody's looking to be annexed, that could be an option we would review. And then stop sugarcoating it and call it what it is. You're rewriting the ordinance to achieve the 30 by 2030 with redrawing the city limits. Again, I'm not sure about addressing, this is from Mr. Throgmorton, statement about growing the city limits versus focusing on our limits and requiring those that are currently receiving water and sewer and are not residents addressing that situation. So other than that, I don't see anything factual here of interest. I guess J Street, it's flooding, exactly. That's why we focused on the infrastructure increase for water and sewer to address the J Street floods from 16th to 18th Street. It looks like the rest is there. We've answered everything. Any other comments from the council?
Your Honor, I don't think on number 7, did we properly vote on that ordinance?
Yes, it passed 7-0.
We did not have a motion or a second for the approval.
So then, can I have a motion and a second for the amended ordinance number 12-2013?
So moved.
Second.
Well, I do have a motion and a second, and all those in favor of the mobile vendors of municipal code of the city of LaPorte, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0, and I do appreciate that follow-up. Any other comments from the council?
Your Honor, you're only as good as your team, and as the chief of Grammar Police, I'd like to deputize Councilwoman Ficus as well as Councilwoman Cutler. I think they'll add a lot of value to the Grammar Police.
Thank you.
Certainly appreciate.
Gladly accept.
Also, Mr. Minnick and I and others will be meeting to discuss the North-South Connector with the county, so that will be coming up. And the solid waste district is reviewing recycling cost. Right now it's $4 a month. They've been running at about an $800,000 loss each year, but they had the tipping fee money to cover that loss. Well, that money just happens to be gone now. That used to be $11 million over time, has been used to cover the loss. So the Board of Commissioners, City of Michigan City and the City of LaPorte, which I'm the representative, are reviewing all options, but I don't see how it can continue with curbside service without an increase of probably $2 a month, and that's what we discussed at today's public meeting. Any other comments? And I would certainly encourage anybody that would like to discuss annexation or concerns about that can reach me on my cell phone, 363-7293. And with that, anything else, or I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We are adjourned. Everybody have a fantastic evening.